Hey, Chris Scalzi here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Round, Matt and I are going to discuss Fighting with My Family, the biographical film about the wrestler Paige and her introduction and conquering of the WWE. We're also going to talk about the latest iPhone 7 shot Steven Soderbergh film, High Flying Bird. And then in honor of our sport movie showcase, Matt and I are going to go ahead and tell you what we think the 5 best performances in a sports movie is. And stuff. I'm also going to talk about what's coming up on Blu-ray and DVD, and then we're going to have a moratorium on the Oscars, which may be the last Oscars I watch. We're going to have a therapy session live to take.
Wow. It's a bold statement.
Matt, you're going to have to help me out. But let's start everything off with a little bit of fun and adventure. Here's a clip from Fighting with My Family.
So, what's for people who enjoy wrestling?
That's a good question.
I mean, it's all fake anyway, isn't it? So it's just...
Come again?
It's not fake, it's fixed.
Yeah, if it was fake, would I have broken half the bones in my body, Def?
His left leg bends both ways.
You've got another question, or?
I can, yes. How did you get into wrestling?
It is quite a romantic story.
We like romantic stories.
Oh, right, we like this one. Well, when I met Rick, I was homeless, abused, living on the street, you know. Yep.
I myself had done 8 years in prison.
Prison? What was that for?
Mainly violence.
Mainly violence, yeah.
Bit of armed robbery, you know.
Anyway, I came back to the flat one night and there was guns, money on the table, everything.
So there was guns and
money.
Guns and money,
yeah.
Right?
Done a job, haven't you? And I looked at him.
The look said essentially, Ricky, turn your back on crime, otherwise I'm going to turn my back on you.
And he did.
That's what I did.
Never looked back. Some people find religion, but wrestling, we found wrestling, didn't we? It was our salvation.
We found each other and all.
Yeah.
Love. It's nice. It's nice. Matt, why don't you tell the fine folks at home or driving on the road, perhaps they're getting ready for their day. And always, every particular episode is mastered for a particular listening experience. This one, of course, is while perfecting the 4-figure leg lock thing. What was the thing that, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
That.
Yeah.
That.
That thing.
So what is Fighting with My Family all about?
Sure. So it's about a pair of young kids, Zach and Soraya, who are big fans of the wrestling. They come from a wrestling family. They grew up wanting to be wrestlers, and they get a shot each to become performers in the WWE. And then whereas Soraya is picked to continue and Zach is left behind. And it's really about the rest of her time coming up in the WWE as wrestler Paige.
Sweet. Now, I got to tell you, I haven't really been all in on any of the WWE studio films, right? Mm-hmm. I think they've had, there's been a couple things that I found interesting. Oculus, they were a part of. All right, there you go. I'll take a little bit of that. And that may be it. So, particularly now, we're also going to fold in a wrestling story, right? We're going to introduce the origin of one of their big stars, Paige.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going, all right, but then I see who wrote and directed it. So Stephen Merchant, who you may know from the original UK Office and frequent comedy partner of Ricky Gervais. So having him have a hand in this kind of raised my expectations a bit. But Matt, where did you come down with Fighting with My Family? So you have it's a sports film, sorta. It's a biopic. It's a comedy. It's a family drama. What were your thoughts on the Fightings with the Family?
Yeah, I think they got some ringers in the cast. I mean, obviously you heard Lena Headey and Nick Frost in the little stinger there that we had before, and The Rock shows up in this. And I was never really that into WWF or WWE, even back in its 80s glory with Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and everybody else. But so I had no idea who this was supposed to be. Like, I knew it was supposed to be a wrestler, like the story of some wrestler, but I had to go look it up beforehand to even understand who this was. Because I looking at the real Paige, I was like, I don't know who this is. But at the end of the day, you know, I was relatively into it. I mean, it's a charming little movie. It's not anything groundbreaking. It's not in the pantheon of great sports movies. But I think it's I thought it was a competent little diversion that was, you know, had its charms and it had its laughs, and it was an entertaining afternoon.
I think that's fair. It's kind of unconventional in its subject matter when it comes to sports films, I guess, but it's really, for me too, I almost viewed the whole thing as a puff piece, as a promotional piece for the WWE more than anything else. You know, and maybe it's my ignorance of maybe Paige has some outsized importance to the WWE I'm not aware of. Now, I grew up in the Hulk Hogan days as well, Roddy Piper, you know, all that stuff. And I was a regular viewer. In fact, one of my childhood friends, his father would announce for the WWF at the time whenever they were kind of in the New England area. So a couple of my friends got to meet some of the big names at the time. I never went to any of the events, but still, I was kind of into it then. And I've since kind of gravitated away as it's just is not something that continued to hold my interest. So if she is this outsized presence and deserves her own film, I guess it's fine. It's certainly an interesting and entertaining enough biopic. I think it's mostly salvaged by a strong script by Stephen Merchant, how he's able to make this film, these performances interesting and funny and endearing at the same time. I found the performances by Florence Pugh strong and engaging. She plays the titular Paige. Particularly, though, I think the thing that makes this thing roll whenever he's on camera, and I think you can say that about almost anything he does, is Nick Frost. I mean, he was easily, for me, heck, I even used him in the clip to open the show.
Right.
So it's solid. And I think it definitely handles the internal conflict that the family has, particularly with Paige and her brother, right? Because he doesn't make it, but she does. So there's kind of a conflict there. And I think it handles that particularly well. It does a good job of tugging on the heartstrings there. And you do root for her. But in the end, I kind of found it fairly rote. I mean, the whole thing, let me know what you felt about this. And maybe this is a failure of the script or maybe more the direction, but the whole thing felt fairly predetermined to me. Now, I know we know it all. We know where we're going to get to, right? We know what the end point is. But at no point did I feel in the unraveling of the film that was ever in any real doubt. What did you think about that? Did you get that vibe at all? We may have lost Matt.
Sorry, that was really weird. It just died.
You're still frozen too on the page. It's really wild.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just really weird. It just said this web page has crashed, and then that was just sad Google face. It was weird.
You're still there. Weird. Now there's two of you. All right, where did I lose you?
I guess you were talking about how her brother didn't make it. And
all right, just roll with me.
Yeah.
Hold on. Matt, did it feel kind of predetermined to you with her? I just, the problem is we all know where she's going to get to, right, by the end of the film. But maybe it's just a fault in the storytelling that at no point did I ever really feel that her arc and that she was ever really in jeopardy.
Yeah, I guess. You know, I guess I would chalk that up just because they're just trying to make kind of like a milquetoast feel good movie, and they didn't really want any dramatic stakes other than I think the dramatic stakes they wanted was more about not her, whether she was going to make it or not. It was kind of how she interacted with her family and how that kind of affected the rest of her life. So maybe it's just a different focus on what Merchant was trying to do.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I think maybe part of it is Vince Vaughn's, anti Mr. Miyagi. I feel like he's pulling for her the whole time, and you definitely get that vibe from it. I don't know. Still, overall, I think it's well done and it's entertaining. It has its uplifting moments, but again, you've seen this thing a dozen times, and I don't know if introducing it as a wrestling angle is enough to bring it above some of the other genre fare that this would, partner up with. So
Right.
in the end, I'm going to give Fighting with My Family a B-. I think it's, like I said, it's entertaining, it's fun, you'll enjoy it, but it is what it is. It's a B-. Where do you come down?
You know what? I'm gonna give it a B- too. I was gonna go a B, but I think you talked me into a B-. Let's just pull the Band-Aid off and let's just be the same for this particular film.
Whew, finally. Woo! If you've had a chance to see Fighting with My Family, would love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. Matt, coming up on Blu-ray this upcoming Tuesday, which is March 5th, there is it's fairly significant film. Let's hear a clip from it.
This mud stinks.
They shit in the streets around here. Political commentary, they call it. Go through here. Clean yourself up.
Thank you so much.
Oh!
Lady Marlborough.
Oh, I didn't know the news still ended in here.
It is I, Abigail. Dear cousin, I have a letter from our aunt. And I'm sorry, I did not mean to present as I fell out of a carriage.
So that, of course, is Emma Stone with Rachel Weisz and Academy Award winner Olivia Colman in the Best Picture of 2018. No matter what you may have heard, The Favorite being released in Blu-ray and DVD, not 4K, Matt. No planned 4K release for The Favorite, which I find endlessly disappointing. It will include some deleted scenes and a making of featurette focusing on unstitching the costume drama. A larger film, I'd probably imagine, box office-wise, Creed 2 is being released with 4 making of featurettes and some deleted scenes. An entertaining but underwhelming sequel. I think that's a fair criticism.
Fair assessment, yeah.
A film we didn't get to catch up with that I'd hope, Matt, we can work in at some point soon is the Natalie Portman led, she stars in it, Vox Lux, where she plays the pop star who I guess has become disillusioned with her own fame. I've been anxious to catch up with that, so now we can finally see that. Includes a music video of the song Wrapped Up. Another film that I did not get to see, unfortunately, because it wasn't really available around here, Burning, is being released, which is supposed to be fantastic, starring Stephen Yeun. Matt, have you heard about Burning at all?
I have not.
So it's the searing examination of an alienated young man, Jung-soo, played by Ah Hin-yu, a frustrated introvert whose already difficult life is complicated by the appearance of 2 people into his orbit. First, Hae-mi, who is played by newcomer Young Sung-woon, a spirited woman who offers romantic possibilities, and Ben, this is Stephen Yeun, a wealthy and sophisticated young man, returns from a recent trip. When Young-soo learns of Ben's mysterious hobby and Hae-mi suddenly disappears, his confusion and obsessions begin to mount, culminating in a stunning finale. This is supposed to be fantastic, Matt.
Okay.
So we're definitely going to have to work this one into the queue as well. The feel-good family drama / comedy Instant Family is being released. This is the Mark Wahlberg, Rose Byrne adoption movie.
Right.
Includes audio commentary by the director and writer Cheyenne Anders, introduction by Anders, as well as writer John Morris, gag reel, deleted and extended scenes. It's supposed to be actually quite good. But that's coming out. Ben is Back, a Julia Roberts film about a drug-addicted teenage boy who shows up unexpectedly at his family's home on Christmas Eve. Includes commentary by the writer-director Peter Hedges. Gerard Butler returns in The Vanishing. This time, Matt, it promises to be a tense, action-packed thriller based on true events. After 3 lighthouse keepers arrive for work on a remote Scottish isle, they make a fateful choice: a wrecked rowboat with a chest full of gold. As a mysterious boat heads towards the island, the 3 men make a choice that will change their lives forever, ensuring them in a web of greed, paranoia, and murder. New to Blu-ray, The Craft includes 4 brand new featurettes on the making of the film, focusing on some interviews, as well as some ported over featurettes and an old audio commentary by the director. Did you hear about, they did some retrospective stuff on The Craft recently, because I guess it's an anniversary for the film.
Oh, really?
And they didn't invite Rachel True. But they invited the other 3 white women who starred in the film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just
That's
kind of
weird.
Yeah. So I think that's since been rectified, I hope. California with a K is being released as well. This is the film directed by Dominic Sena. I think Brad Pitt actually has a role in it. It includes the theatrical cut, which has not been available on Blu-ray previously. Arrow is releasing the Sister Street Fighter collection, Matt. All of the films are going to be included in this set. It was brand new high definition 1080p transfers of all 4 films, as well as the original uncompressed Japanese mono audio and the English dub audio for Sister Street Fighter. And there's new English subtitles for all 4 films, new interviews, and a bunch of other stuff as well. So if you're a fan of the Sister Street Fighter films, you can pick up that set from Arrow. Your straight to DVD pick of the week, Matt. Are you sitting down? I can see you are.
You can see me. You can see me. Of course you know I'm sitting down.
Yeah, but not everybody watches, Matt. They just listen. You could be standing.
You're right. I stand 99% of the time, folks. I stand for the show.
He's got one of those treadmill desks. Dead Ant. When the 80s one-hit wonder glam metal band Sonic Grave embark on a road trip to Coachella in hopes of a comeback, their peyote trip pit stop in Joshua Tree incites a grizzly attack, and they must rock themselves out of harm's way. And there's supposedly an ant or something. I don't know. But that's it. That's Dead Ant. What should we be streaming this week?
I'm going to go with an oldie, a real oldie. I'm going to go with the Third Man, a unemployed pulp novelist in World War II Vienna learns that his friend Harry has died in an accident and compelled to investigate his death. Holly slowly uncovers startling revelations about Harry's life. It's available on Netflix. It's a classic film.
There's that one scene too in the Ferris wheel with Orson Welles. That is, it's probably the most memorable thing in the film outside of the chase through the tunnels. But Third Man is one of the first classic films I ever saw, and when I actually started seeking them out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oliver Reed, and it is fantastic. I do own the Blu-ray from Criterion, which I think is out of print at this point. So,
look at you.
I am fancy. So, let's take a couple of minutes, Matt. I don't want to belabor this, but I need somebody to talk me down.
A week later.
I hadn't really thought about it, but it's one of those things where just kind of every now and then it comes back up. And then I start thinking about it and I get upset all over again. So, a lot of horrible things happened this past Sunday. A lot of good things happened, right? Alfonso Cuarón won Oscars for cinematography and direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had a default popular film win, maybe, with Green Book. Is that what it is? That's what I'm kind of trying to tell myself, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. Rami Malek as Freddie Mercury is not a good choice. It's not a horrible choice, but it's not good. I liked how I don't think any of I think it was just Ali who thanked actual Dr. Shirley. I don't think anybody else associated with Green Book actually thanked him or his family for the story.
Okay.
Which I found interesting. Olivia Colman, though, her acceptance speech was top shelf. And her reaction and her speech, I absolutely adored. But everything else, I think, was relatively horrible. The fact that, Roma winning foreign language film, which I said in at the time live, was basically, it's out. It's not going to Best Picture. They took that as an out. They can reward it there, and they don't have to look at it again. Richard Grant not winning. I'm sorry. I thought it was just a more interesting and fascinating performance. Not that Ali didn't do a great job. He's just, underserved by a subpar film. And I think this is likely, Matt, the worst Best Picture in at least 10 years. Do you have any thoughts? Can you talk me off of my edge here? Matt, I don't know if I want to watch anymore. If this is what it is now, I don't see the point. I think maybe we tune into the Spirit Awards instead and call it a day.
Yeah. I've been pushing not to watch the Oscars for a little while now. I don't watch award shows at all anymore. They're really not that interesting to me. I'm not invested in any of the things enough to where I really care if they win or not. And honestly, just the entire process is just really boring. I can get the same impact just reading about it the next day. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this one just kind of showed, there was no host, which I didn't think was a bad decision, but it just shows how it shows how unnecessary the entire proceeding is. I mean, it just basically went from went everything to just bringing out introduction after introduction after introduction, and it just, I don't know. It just wasn't that riveting, really.
Yeah, now here's the thing. I haven't seen Chicago.
But I didn't see it either.
Outside of that, this is the worst picture I've seen since 2000. It's got to be. So yeah, Gladiator, A Beautiful Mind, Chicago, Return of the King, $1 Million Baby, Crash.
Ooh. I thought this was the comparison to Crash.
It is. You're right. All right. So that and Crash, I think, hold hands as they jump off the cliff. The Departed, No Country for Old Men, Slumdog, Hurt Locker, King's Speech, The Artist, Argo, 12 Years a Slave, Birdman, Spotlight, Moonlight, The Shape of Water, and then Green Book.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the Academy doesn't know how to adjust race. Maybe that's our problem.
Maybe.
Well, 12 Years a Slave won, though. And that was against American Hustle, Captain Phillips, Dallas Buyers Club, Gravity, Her, Nebraska, Philomena, and The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
That was the best film of that year. I don't. And Toni Collette being snubbed, too, is just. Now, granted, I don't know who I pull out of that category is the problem to put her in. But I haven't seen Glenn Close and the Wife, so I can't say that.
Right.
It's just, yeah, I don't know. I just don't see the point. I don't see the point anymore.
Well, and here's the thing. This is what's going to end up happening. I mean, this is what the Oscars do. They'll have kind of one milquetoast, set of entries. And then we'll get a year or two from now where it'll have a bunch of really exciting things. And we're all really passionate about, what's going to win. And there's a lot of great contenders, and then it'll be exciting again because it's like it'll just be a really great year. I mean, some of those lists that you rattled off, I mean, honestly, maybe only a handful of them, maybe a few, 2 or 3, would actually be in my all-time rotation of would watch again kind of thing unequivocally. And the rest I could forget, So, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, don't forget, too, 2007 also gave us There Will Be Blood and Michael Clayton, which is eminently rewatchable, Atonement, which is fantastic. 2007 was that's probably the best year. If I had to choose one since the aughts, that was probably the one to go with. Though it did have Spider-Man 3 and the first Transformers film. I Am Legend. Wow, maybe not so much. National Treasure. These are the top 10. Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, Order of the Phoenix, Spider-Man 3, Shrek the Third, Transformers, Ratatouille, I Am Legend, The Simpsons movie, National Treasure, Book of Secrets, and 300. Those are your top 10 films that year.
That is a murderer's row of crap right there. That is garbage. Although it produced, that's 2007 was No Country for Old Men, though, right?
Yep. And
one of my favorite movies of all time. I will watch that movie a couple times a year. I love that movie so much.
No, I haven't watched that in a long time. I've probably watched There Will Be Blood at least once a year. Since 2007. I guess when it came out, I have watched There Will Be Blood. How many? That's what, 12 years, 11 years? I've watched it 6 times, easily.
There you go.
I think I've only seen No Country for Old Men twice since then.
That is a travesty.
Another thing too, I've been thinking about revisiting, and I just picked it up on Blu-ray finally to upgrade it, was History of Violence. I remember really liking that thing. Anyway, back to my point. Right now, we're not gonna watch the Oscars. We may still do our discussion about it, right? Pick who should win, who will win.
Yeah.
But we'll just report back on the results. I think I'm done.
All right.
I'm done.
What this really boils down to is that Chris lost the contest for the first time.
Second time.
Second time.
Dave beat me once.
Oh, okay.
Barely. I
And
still
you're
had
just
that one
mad-
time I got one wrong.
Yeah. And you're mad at this one because I went with my heart that you also felt that you should have gone with, and that person ended up winning because you were a cynic. You
There
picked.
was that one I changed at the last minute because my
Yeah.
heart won out and I was stupid about it. Whatever. Let's move on. Let's talk about
Let's.
something I think much more interesting for not just me, but for the listening
Is it though?
audience.
Is it? Though?
Ooh. Shots fired. Let's hear a clip from High Flying Bird.
So what, now you rushing me off?
I'm no longer having a good time.
Yeah, me and you both.
He got your ass.
Who?
You an owl now? You just telling me this now. Jumping at me, Eric Scott, when you got. That man ain't meet you by happenstance at your homie's party 6 months ago. He meant to rock up to whoever's preseason soiree was going down and catch him a rookie. And he caught the big fish, yeah.
Come on.
Oh, the #1 signer. He got your ass. Now, don't get me wrong, you helped. Smiling. What'd he say? Big fan. Saw all your games at LSU. Said he couldn't wait for you to sign to New York so he wouldn't have to travel to see you. Gave you a nerdy laugh, made you think he was a cornball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a clip from High Flying Bird, the latest one from Steven Soderbergh. Shot on an iPhone 7, released directly on Netflix, available now. Starring Andre Holland, Zazie Beetz, Melvin Gregg, Sonia Son, Zachary Quinto, Kyle MacLachlan, Bill Duke. Just a really solid cast running this thing out. And there's a lockout, Matt, in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And the agent to the stars there, one of the better, maybe doesn't have all the big stars, but he's got the #1 draft pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got the young kid coming up as one of his clients, and he's trying to figure out what to do to help his client make money, and then what can he do possibly to break the strike. So he sets some plans in motion. He moves some chess pieces around. And what starts as a sports film that shows basically no basketball turns into I think, an exceptionally interesting high-stakes political thriller. And I absolutely enjoyed the hell out of this thing. For me, Matt, I almost want to see this as a stage play. It's very, very dialogue heavy. All right. But it's an exceptionally well-written script and performed just as well. You could really feel the dialogue is delivered not kind of like in a staccato odd, what's his name there? Mamet style, right? But it kind of has almost that Mamet kind of rapid fire kind of punch to the gut feel to it, or at least it did for me. And I really enjoyed this thing. And I'm thinking maybe you didn't.
So well, here's the thing. This is hilarious about the show. Okay, we always make fun of that. Me and Chris have the same taste, and literally everything Chris just said is the exact same things I was going to say about this movie. It seemed very stage-like, very theatrical in its production, very had some Mamet-esque overtones. The problem was I was just not invested in this at all, and really? and I think that this type of thing where it's just all dialogue, there's really no action in this film of any kind whatsoever. It's basically just them talking about events, and everything is just kind of the whole thing is just a series of conversations. And if you're not invested in that, if you're not invested in the outcome, and you're not invested in with what they're doing, it just becomes a slog. I was just incredibly bored by this.
Matt, this is a thinking person's sports film because the action is in the dialogue, right? It's in the performances. It's a political film. It deals with double crosses, racism, greed, and it's steeped in basketball lore. I sent you, and we'll put it in the notes in the show. There is a great article from the New York Times that kind of teases out all the different references that this film has. Now, I am ignorant when it comes to basketball. I barely know football. I'm a baseball guy, but still, I found this thing riveting, and it crushes me, Matt, that you did not enjoy this as much as I did.
I mean, crush is a strong word, Chris.
I know, but I'm being hyperbolic for effect. It's a much more interesting. All right, how about this, Matt? I'm generally slightly underwhelmed by the fact that you didn't. Is that interesting to hear? No.
Yes. Yes, it is. That's basically what this movie is in a nutshell. There's no big dramatic stakes. There's no really even any emotion to it. Everything felt very flat to me. And all of the things, and it's just so interesting to me that you said it had a Mamet-esque tone, and you use that as a positive, but all of the Mamet things that people say is a negative is what applied to me for this. It was very cold. Like, it didn't seem like it was lifeless. It was just lifeless. It was like they were reading, they had memorized their cue cards and their lines, and they were just reading them off, pitter patter, the way they thought that should be shot off, but it had no emotion behind it at all.
I just don't agree. It reminded me at times of Ocean's 11 in the way that the characters kind of interact and dance around each other, and how the charm that they all seem to have when they're having their discussions, and just how do I describe it? No, it's not like saccharine, drop me in a vat of chocolate, sweet kind of charm like Clooney and Pitt. That the interplay the two of them have in that film, I wish I could bottle that and bathe in it. But it's still really kind of fascinating when particularly Andre Holland's Ray Burke interacts with everybody, because he is the focus star of this film, and how he orbits all of this stuff and how he handles it all, and the things he sets in motion. I just found the whole thing fascinating and interesting, and it's so funny because I was riveted by this thing, and you had no investment whatsoever.
Yeah, and that's what I think is interesting most about this discussion is we all recognize the things that are good about the film or the technical aspects of the film. It's just that if you're not invested, it's just going to leave you emotionally cold. Like, just like me, I was just kind of like waiting for this thing to be over. And, as much as I was impressed with watching a lot of the technical thing with the iPhone, there were a couple scenes where I was like, that could have really benefited if you were kind of using something other than a phone to film this kind of thing. Like, there was a scene where he's talking to Zachary Quinto's, the manager, higher up character in his office.
Yeah.
And they're sitting in front of a window, and Zachary Quinto is so washed out from the light from the window, you can't even see him. Like, it's like he's completely in shadow. And I don't think that was like an artistic choice. I just think that's a limitation of what they were using. But
I don't think I noticed that. I don't know if maybe you have your color settings too high. You get your thing on vivid or something, or are you oversaturating your?
I don't think so. No, he was very hard to see. And then they went to the other side of him, and he's of course awash in natural light kind of thing.
So I have a question for you now that seems pointless because you didn't have the same. They didn't have the film didn't have the same impact on you as it did me. The question I had initially for you is the intimacy of the direction owed more to the dialogue and performances, or the use and maybe you would say limitations of the iPhone as your camera?
I would say it's the latter, personally. I didn't think I wasn't really invested in these people, so I would argue to say that the intimacy of the performances wasn't really something that was reeling me in.
All right, that's too bad. That's too bad because I really enjoyed this thing. I'm going to give it a B+.
Okay.
I'm assuming you're going to be in the C range. Or are you going to say end up B, that we have a vast difference in our opinions, but our grades are similar, which has happened before?
Yeah, no, I'm going to give it a C.
Okay. B+ and a C.
That's about as wide as it gets, folks.
That's true for us. That's very true. High Flying Bird is currently available for streaming on Netflix now. If you had a chance to see it, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Shoot us an email at feedback. That's FEED as in David, B as in boy, ACK at thefirstrun.com. I'm trying to be as hip as possible. I think that's what the kids say nowadays. Matt, let's go ahead and keep the train rolling. And we'll talk about our 5 favorite performances in a sports film. I'm going to ruin it for you right now, Matt. I'm going to tell you right now, this is my honorary Jake LaMotta list because I don't know if there's another answer. So that's what I made it. So anyway, let's hear a clip, Matt, from a movie that didn't quite make the cut for dear old Chris.
Hey, Engelberg.
What?
There's chocolate all over this ball.
Look, Mr. Buttermaker, quit bugging me about my food. People are always bugging me about it. My shrink says that's why I'm so fat. So you're not doing me any good, so let's quit it.
Okay. All right, look alive. Let's get one. Are you ready? Let's get one out there. Engelberg.
What?
That is a bunt. B-U-N-T. The catcher is supposed to pick up the bunt and throw it to first base.
What the hell is that supposed to know? You make sure the big deal yelling after them.
Diversionary tactic, Engelberg. Now get the ball.
Why are you always picking on me? What did I do to you?
Engelberg, quit your clubbing bellyache and throw the ball to first base.
That, of course, is a clip from the Bad News Bears.
Mm-hmm.
My old softball team, when I used to run it back in Connecticut, used to call me Buttermaker. I think it's one of the cleaner nicknames that they had for me. And Chico's bail bonds still shows up every now and then in my softball discussions when I'm yelling at my team now here in Tampa as well. Still, Walter Matthau in that film, pure comic genius.
Mm-hmm.
That film does still hold up to this day. So if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check it out. I watched it, I think, a couple years ago.
Yeah,
I wouldn't bother with any of the sequels, but that one is rock solid.
I've not seen it in forever.
And Matt, I've deferred to you for the number one for a long time, so I'm going to have you go first this week.
Okay.
But again, I've probably already stolen some of your thunder, as this is my honorary Robert De Niro, Jake LaMotta list. But
yeah, you might have, but we'll get to that. We'll find suspense, folks. Did Chris steal my thunder?
There you go.
All right, so I think Chris is going to hate my list, but I don't care. This is my list, and I get to do what I want because this is America, damn it. So my number 5 pick is the greatest Russian in film history, Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. Now, I kind of went back and forth between Ivan and Mr. T, but I don't know. You know, I think Dolph really embodies everything that's great about the Rocky film, and really about the 80s in general. Just America versus the Ruskies. You know, if he dies, he dies. I must break you. All of that stuff. It's fantastic. I freaking love Ivan Drago from Rocky IV.
Yeah, that's not a good pick, and let me explain to you why.
Okay, you tell me. Like I said, you're gonna hate this list.
That is not a good performance. He actually delivers a better performance in Creed 2 than he does in that film, because in Rocky IV, he's a caricature, right? He's just he's a mindless kind of just tool of the Soviet Union. There's nothing really. It's just not good.
That's why it's great. That's why it's great, Chris.
I guess so. Fine. My number 5 is the heart and soul, at least for me, or at least maybe the guiding force, or as it's now negatively viewed as the magic Negro, but that's going to be James Earl Jones as Terrence Mann in The Field of Dreams. A fantastic baseball film, and like all baseball movies, maybe sports movies in general, they're not about sports. Mm-hmm. You know, they're always more the venue for something else. And Terrence Mann, he's the countercultural writer who gets, for lack of a better term, kidnapped by Kevin Costner's Ray Kinsella because he's hearing a voice telling him to build it, and then he will come. So, but his performance there as the doubting skeptic and then true believer. And then once his character completes its arc, I don't know. It's just for me, it's just vintage, top form James Earl Jones, that bellowing voice and his screw it all type of performance. I don't know. It's one of my all time favorites, so I had to give it some honor. So it's my number 5.
Very good. So my number 4 is one of the better movies about bowling that's ever been made. And I'm not talking about The Big Lebowski, because bowling is incidental to that film. I'm talking about Kingpin, and I'm talking about Ernie Bigger McCracken, played by Bill Murray, who gives a completely wonderful, unhinged bowling performance that is one for the ages. And it's pretty far up there. It's not Caddyshack level of Bill Murray sports performances, but it's definitely second place. Easy.
I have never seen Kingpin from start to finish. There was just something about it that spoke to me as in, dear God, do not watch this. So I've never seen it.
Okay.
Do I need to rectify that, Matt?
No, you're probably still not going to like it because I believe it's a Farrelly Brothers movie, but watching it to see Bill Murray is worth it. He's funny in this.
I enjoyed There's Something About Mary back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think That's it. Dumb and Dumber. I'm not on the Dumb and Dumber train. I don't think it's because I was never a big Jim Carrey fan. It's fine. It's got some funny moments. Shallow Hal wasn't good. Me, Myself, and Irene, not terribly good. I never saw Stuck on You. Hall Pass is atrocious.
Well, it's better than any of those.
Yeah, no, not cool, man. Not cool. All right, my number 4, and spiritually in my heart, this would be in my number 1. But if I look at it as an analytical level, it's 4, and that's Robert Redford as Roy Hobbs in The Natural. The Natural is my all-time favorite sports film. And just, I don't know if it's Randy Newman's score, which is GD iconic. It's one of those things, as soon as you hear it, you know what it is. I'm talking like Imperial March, right? That's how well known this thing is. And he plays the aging ball player who decides to give it a shot, even though he may be past his prime, but he's still got it. And it just has so many moments, right? When he hits the ball into the lights and they shatter and the bulbs all blow and stuff. And I don't know. It somehow has this dreamlike state to it and is able to capture and instill in the viewer a sense of kind of youth and that anything is possible. And Redford is just, doing his Redfordy best throughout this whole thing. So The Natural is my number 4, or I should say Roy Hobbs.
There you go. So I just want to take a moment here. And the reason the kind of list I picked, because I knew that Chris was going to pick The Natural. I knew that, Field of Dream was going to be on there. I'm sure Bull Durham is going to show up in here somewhere, maybe an honorable mention. But what's the theme here? Chris likes baseball, and therefore we're getting a bunch of baseball films. But, where's Pride of the Yankees? Is that going to show up in here somewhere?
I've never seen it. The Gary Cooper. We got 3 more slots, Matt. 1 more baseball reference. So
one more baseball reference. All right, but this is the last of my ones that I just kind of wanted to throw in there. And I'm not saying that Chris's picks aren't fantastic picks.
Because they are
fantastic picks. But my number 3 is obviously when Chris said this was the first thing that popped into my mind. Of course, it's Will Ferrell as Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights. I really thought about putting in Cal Naughton as the other choice, but I decided to go with the man himself. That dinner scene with Baby Jesus and the bounty of Kentucky Fried Chicken is endlessly quotable, and he's got a point. I think my Jesus is the little Christmas baby Jesus. Okay.
I haven't seen that in a while. I should check it out again. That is, man, that thing made me laugh like crazy. Hip shake and bake I use to this day for softball games too.
Do you?
But oh yeah. But I used to have a player who smoked a lot of pot, so that was really funny. He obviously was bake.
There you go.
But still, yeah, no, I haven't seen that. I gotta watch that again. I think I have the unrated version. And also, who's great in that too? What's his name there? The Borat guy. I'm so tired.
Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah, as the French.
Yeah, as the French Formula One driver. Yeah.
But John C. Reilly is, I think, the two of them together. Though we haven't seen Holmes and Watson, which is supposed to be just atrocious.
Yeah.
But the two of them together, there's just something about. They always seem to be able to catch lightning in a bottle, and I think for a couple films they certainly did. So.
Well, and here's to say, I'm not confident about Holmes and Watson, but Step Brothers, which I have a real appreciation for, was in the 30s, I think, for Rotten Tomatoes. So who knows? Maybe it's great. Who knows?
We'll see. Mm-hmm. So my number 3 is Michelle Brad Pitt as Billy Bean. This is your last baseball one, Matt.
Okay.
In Moneyball, a book I actually read. I don't do a lot of reading anymore, but I did read this one. And now the film is much different than the book because the book is a little more analytical and telling the story of the Oakland A's. This one has more of a kind of theatrical or narrative. So, but still, and of course, you have the late lamented Philip Seymour Hoffman as the manager Art Howe. But Brad Pitt plays Billy Bean, the ball player who was a can't-miss prospect who missed, who ended up going all in on the analytics side of baseball. Never won. They never won.
No.
But they've come close and they've done really well with very little, quite a few times. So his performance, so he really seems to channel and capture Billy Bean, his compassion and his love for the game and his willingness to kind of maybe try something different. You know, when he trades the Jeremy Giambi, that whole thing. I mean, that is a fantastic scene. Confrontation with Philip Seymour Hoffman's Art Howe, and I think they smartly introduced to the family dynamic with him and his daughter, and I don't know. I just think it's a really strong performance by Brad Pitt and one of his best. So Moneyball's my 3. Billy Bean.
There you go. All right. So my number 2, maybe it's your number 2. I don't know. We'll see. My number 2 is Randy the Ram Robinson. Played by Mickey Rourke in The Wrestler. It's just a fantastic film. Just the story of a minor league, I guess you could call it, kind of basement style wrestler. He's kind of still trying to reach his dreams and his past glories, and he's just never going to quite get there. And he's just kind of this broken, kind of sad man who still somehow kind of holds on to his dream. And Marissa Tomei is the dancer / confidant friend is fantastic as well. I mean, the movie is gorgeous. I really love The Wrestler. It's a sad, melancholy little piece, but it's fantastic.
No, I agree entirely. It's my number 2 as well. It's one of those things where every now and then you're able to catch the perfect actor in the perfect role, and this is it for Mickey Rourke. I mean, this thing it may even have been written for him, for all I know, but he is fantastic in this thing. Unfortunately, he didn't seem to really parlay it into anything else except a couple of Expendable films
and Iron Man 2.
That's true. That's very true. But his performance in this is, I don't want to use the term revelatory because he had a good arc for quite a while, but then kind of ran into some personal troubles. But he is just fascinating in this film. So it's my number 2 as well. Randy the Ram. It's like every now and then you're able to tune in on an actor's particular talents. I think of like Kristen Stewart in Personal Shopper, right? If you can get the right people together and you know how to work them, then you can come up with something, even maybe for a fleeting moment, that's absolutely just is magic. And that's Rourke in that film.
So guess number 1. Do you want to talk about number 1?
Go ahead.
All right. So obviously number 1 is Jake LaMotta, Robert De Niro, and Raging Bull. Just a fantastic performance from beginning to end. It's a gorgeous film. It's one of Scorsese's best. There's not a lot to say about it because I feel like we've mentioned it probably 4 or 5 times a year, for the past 10 years while I've been doing this show. So I don't know what else to say. It's fantastic. If you haven't seen it, then stop what you're doing right now and go listen to it or watch it. Listen to it. Watch it.
Yeah, it is an all-time classic and clearly should have won Best Picture of the year it came out. It's a career-defining performance by a man who's had probably, a dozen career-defining performances. But still, it's heartbreaking, it's endearing, it's sad, it'll break your heart, and it's incredible. So that's why it's my honorary title, because there wouldn't be any other number 1.
Right.
So my number 1 then is a role that initially, the first time out of the gate, Matt, is filled with vulnerability and an intimacy about a homeboy, a home guy who does good. Maybe he doesn't win, Matt. Maybe that happens in a sequel. But the first time out of the gate, there is an intimacy and a vulnerability in that performance that you just don't see later on. Of course, that's Stallone as Rocky Balboa in the first Rocky film.
Mm-hmm.
That film that won Best Picture is still to this day fantastic. And there's an earthiness and an everyman quality that he instills in Balboa that, it becomes a superhero, right, later on. But that first time, it is something remarkable. So that's why I ended up being my number 1. Is Stallone in Rocky, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't make your list. I found that interesting.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of Rocky. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was because I was younger, but I kind of missed out on the first one. And just by the time I was kind of aware of what Rocky was, it had already kind of descended into that kind of sequelitis punchline of the 80s kind of thing.
Cartoon versions with Thunder Lips, Hulk Hogan, and
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, it
Lang.
just kind of become this kind of mockery of itself. So it was not something I really ever kind of sought out. Now, when I finally did end up seeing it, it was, it's really good. I really enjoyed it. I just, I really wanted to get my kind of annoying part of the list in there too. So I had to do it. I'm sorry.
And the honorable mentions.
Yeah, I had quite a few actually. Christian Bale in The Fighter, Tim Robbins and Bull Durham. I thought Margot Robbie was very good in I, Tonya. Special shout out to, I forget his name, but the guy who played the bodyguard. Best bit part in a film in the last probably 2 or 3 years. He was fantastic. And then just because I wanted to throw him out there, guys, if you haven't done it, go see a nice 1-2 punch for yourself. Watch Over the Top and then No Holds Barred. Bam, bam. 1-2 punch sports films.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Meet me halfway across the sky. Yeah, I'm going to go Gina Davis as Dottie Hinson in A League of Their Own. Kevin Costner for me as Crash Davis in Bull Durham. And then, well, you heard Mathau. And then, of course, I, Tonya is a great pick as well. Will Ferrell. I didn't even think of Talladega Nights, so good for you. So that's basically all I really came up with, though. So good times.
Good times.
Who do we miss? Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. What's your favorite performance in a sports-related film? I just watched 8 Men Out the other day, too, which I loved as a kid. And it's still pretty solid. The script had some issues where it seemed kind of overly, I don't know. I feel like hacky is just too lazy a term. But still, it still holds up. So if you haven't seen 8 Men Out in a while, that's the movie about the Chicago Black Sox when they threw the World Series. But not a good enough performance than that to make the list. I wanted to make sure I watched it before we recorded the show because I remember really liking it, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if something in here would make the cut." But not quite. Not quite. Nope. So next week, Matt, we're going to talk about Greta, which is why you don't help elderly people. It's really kind of a manual. And I just actually saw that tonight. So that'll be a fun conversation. And we're going to talk about Leave No Trace, correct?
Right. Yes, correct.
The Ben Foster film that, again, shamelessly ignored by the Academy this past season. So, Matt, I've already seen it. Matt, have you watched it yet or no?
I have not watched it yet, no.
Okay. So, we'll see if Matt ends up agreeing with me. And that's going to be the big show for this week, Matt. Coming up, Captain Marvel.
Big time. Summer's already starting, and we haven't even sprung forward yet.
Yep. And then what is this? Shazam's? Is that the week after Shazam? I know it's April. Oh, wait, that's in April. We're still in March. Chris, calm down, would you? Don't get ahead of yourself. Captain Marvel. Well, I'll be checking that out, obviously. All right. So that's going to be the big show for this week. Check us out in all the places. You can listen to the show, not currently on iTunes. You can listen to the old ones, but for some reason, new ones ain't posting. We're looking into it. We are available, though. The new shows are on TuneIn and Stitcher. We just released a cobbled-together discussion of Alita Battle Angel, Matt's favorite film of the past 20 years. And you have to listen to that for the details. I may be exaggerating a bit.
Yeah.
Not much, but a little bit. And also, what else did we discuss? Happy Death Day to You, which is currently both films in theaters. I'd say go see them both. I think you enjoyed in the theaters. I would say see Alita on the biggest screen possible and the loudest. And also our live stream, the audio has been posted as a special episode of the First Run Focus. So you can listen to that or just watch the whole thing on YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Just do a search for the First Run. Scroll. Eventually you will find us. Just also go on the Apple Podcasts and give us a rating while I fix the feed. That's how other people will find the show. Matt, let's go ahead then and take an extended break. And we will see you all soon.